Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear students, I hope you all are fine and well and enjoying your studies. Dear students, I welcome you in Pakistan International School Types virtual learning class for biology, and this is class for grade 2nd year. Today's lecture number 26, and we have started in the previous lecture chapter number 18, in which we are studying about chemical coordination. Dear students, today's topic is about pituitary gland, as we have started pituitary gland in the previous topic in the previous lecture as well. So we'll continue this one, and then we will see thyroid gland and parathyroid gland as well. So let's get started. Dear students, if you remind that human body is having endocrine system as well, like the systems of hormones and different glands which release their hormones in the blood. They are called ductless system. That's what is called endocrine system. In that very important gland which we have started to study, that is pituitary gland. And in pituitary gland, let's go through its some review of this. Like this is hypothalamus, and here is hypothalamus. We are having pituitary gland here. It's very small portion of our brain. Here is pituitary gland, a pea-like gland or size of that. It is having two lobes, anterior lobe of pituitary and posterior lobe of pituitary. So in between the connection of both of the pituitaries, that is called median lobe of pituitary, as you can see this one. So we have studied that this hypothalamus releases its hormones or releasing factors or inhibitory factors into the pituitary gland, especially in anterior pituitary, and pituitary gland secretes some other hormones which are described here. So in the previous lecture, we have studied about anterior pituitary and its hormones, like what type of hormones it secretes. In the brief introduction of all these, we have seen that thyroid stimulating hormone, because pituitary gland releases stimulating factor or stimulating hormone which further affects on different glands to produce its hormones. Adrenal cortex hormone, and the follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, which affects on testes and ovary, adrenocorticotropic hormone, that is adrenocorticotropic hormone, which affect on adrenal cortex. Then we are having growth hormone, and that affects on entire body. Prolactin hormone, that affects on mammary glands in mammals. And then we are having endorphins, that are pain receptors and released from anterior pituitary. So today we will talk about in detail other lobes and its hormones. So that is next to it, that is median lobe of pituitary. So if you can see here that is a small gland which is pituitary gland, that is called hypophysis, and this hypophysis is having anterior lobe, posterior lobe, and in between there is a thin layer of connection that is called intermediate lobe or median lobe. So anterior lobe can be said as adenohypophysis, and posterior lobe can be neurohypophysis, because here the neurons are present. This neuron directly releases its hormones into the posterior lobe. This is the connection between hypothalamus and pituitary gland that is infundibulum. And it is a part of hypothalamus as optic chiasma, like it just receives from eyes. Okay, so let's talk about the median lobe. So median lobes, a median lobe is the connection between anterior and posterior pituitary, and it secretes melanophore stimulating hormone, or that is also called melanocyte stimulating hormone, MSH. Its inhibition of secretion is controlled by hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is a very, very important part here to stimulate or to inhibit any type of secretion from the pituitary gland. Its releasing factor is external light, which governs its secretion. Like in more light, we like our hypothalamus give more messages, and like median pituitary lobe secretes more melanocyte stimulating hormone, which affects on melanocytes. So what is the target? What is the target tissue here? That is melanocytes of the skin, which can just produce a what is this melanin, and which is released in the from the cells, and it gives the complexion to the skin. If it is secreted in more quantity, like hypersecretion, so this excess melanocyte stimulating hormone is secreted in the body, so that can cause Addison's disease. Actually, Addison was the scientist who discovered this disease. So Addison's disease, and one of the main important symptom of this is darkening of the skin. So the person gets too much darker skin with patches in the skin if he is suffering from Addison's disease. Okay, let's talk about the next gland of the part of that pituitary gland, that is posterior pituitary lobe. So you can see that there is hypothalamus, and here is what pituitary gland. It is so it is the size of blueberry, which we have discussed before. So very important thing about posterior pituitary, that it it directly produced by hypothalamus and only stored in posterior pituitary. Here you can see hypothalamus, and here you can see the nerves which are coming from the hypothalamus. They directly come and releases that hormones in the posterior pituitary in the form of neurotransmitters, which are just stored in the posterior pituitary, and hormones are released in the posterior pituitary and diffused into blood capillaries when they are needed. So you can see blood capillaries are there, so they are diffused in the blood capillaries, and then they move out through blood into different parts of the body. So anterior pituitary, that is the proper gland, and it releases its own hormones, but posterior pituitary, it stores the hormones which are released directly from the hypothalamus. That's why this is called neurohypophysis. Like here, the neurosecretory cells bring all the hormones and are stored in posterior pituitary. So it is two hormones released in posterior pituitary. One is ADH, that is called antidiuretic hormone, and the other one is oxytocin. So antidiuretic hormone is also called vasopressin, and the other hormone is oxytocin. Why it is called vasopressin? Because it does vasoconstriction, like vessels. It presses the vessels, it constricts the vessels, and that's why it is called vasopressin as well. So ADH, its main function is to fluid balance in the body, and which controls the renal reabsorption of free water. So how does it function? You can see in this ADH that high blood pressure or osmotic pressure stimulates hypothalamic osmoreceptors, and these osmoreceptors, osmo means they sense the osmolality of the body, of the blood. So what happened when there is high blood pressure? So these osmoreceptors activate the hypothalamus neurosecretory cells, these are, and that synthesize ADH um into posterior pituitary. So nerves impulses liberate ADH from axon terminals, from here axon terminals in the posterior pituitary gland into the bloodstream. So what happened the next? From the bloodstream it reaches to the kidney, and kidney retain more water, which decreases urine input, so water retains in the body more, so that like regulate the water osmolarity in the blood. So then ADH also affects sudoriferous, or those are called sweat glands, and they decrease. Definitely sweat glands, they produce a sweat, that's why water is lost from the body. But here the water lost by perspiration from the skin is stopped. Then arterial constriction is done, that's why it is called vasopressin, which increases the blood pressure. So this increases the blood pressure and water in the body. So low blood osmotic pressure inhibits hypothalamic osmoreceptors, inhibits here. So inhibition of osmoreceptors and stops ADH. When it stop ADH, so there is sweating, and there is vasodilation, and there is less kidney retention, so you release more urine. So it just functions as decrease urine production, decrease sweating, and increase blood pressure. So in a dehydration condition, ADH released, so it means water will be retained more in the body. There is less sweat glands open, and vasoconstriction will be there. So overhydration means if there is more water, so ADH inhibited, so there will be more urination. So if ADH or antidiuretic hormone, that's why it's called antidiuretic hormone, that it maintains the urination process as well. So hyposecretion, like if it secretes less, so there will be diabetes insipidus. Diabetes mellitus is the problem of insulin, and diabetes insipidus is the problem of frequent thirst and frequent urination. If the person is suffering from this, definitely he is having diabetes insipidus. It means in the body ADH is not maintaining the blood retention, as well as it does not producing properly. So what happened? Increased urine output of dilute urine, and that's why that the body get like high and dry as well, because there is more urination and more release of water from the body. Sodium levels are increased in the body, and then what will be happened, ICF will be dehydrated, that intracellular fluid will be less and it will be dehydrated, so metabolic activities will be affected. So in more secretion or hypersecretion of ADH, syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone can happen, like SIADH, like syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone. Like hormone will secrete more than its requirement, so it functions a lot and there will be decreased urine output. So in the body there will be fluid overload, so ICF will be more hydrated and more fluid, and there will be low sodium levels uh, due to high concentration of liquid and water in the body. Well, let's talk about the next hormone of this one, that is oxytocin. Oxytocin, that is manufactured by hypothalamus, we know, like ADH, and stored and released by posterior pituitary. So it is having the positive feedback mechanism on the body, like in childbirth and in suckling process. Like in childbirth, stretching of uterus and cervix is done by oxytocin, as well as milk letdown reflex that also stimulate oxytocin. So uh, target area is uterus, in which it stimulates the contraction of uterine myometrium, like inner wall of uterus, and causing lowering of a fetus, and that helps in labor process. And then it affects on the breast to stimulate contraction of milk ducts and sinuses, which release. So let's talk about very important gland, which is having lots of metabolic effects on our body, that is thyroid gland. So thyroid gland, if you see here, it is present below the larynx, and it is butterfly shaped gland which is present on the trachea below the larynx, the cartilage of larynx. So you can see here, front view, this is butterfly shaped thyroid gland, and it is having right and left lobe and isthmus. This is the central connection between these two lobes. And thyroid gland from the back, it is having further glands which is having named as parathyroid glands, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So here we see the location immediately below the larynx on each side and anterior to the trachea, as we have seen in the previous diagram, and here you can see this one. So this is very, very important. If you see, it's like secretions or hormones. There are three types of hormones secreted by, that is thyroxine or T4, or triiodothyronine, that is a T3, and calcitonin. It activates or functions in the presence of iodine. So iodine is a mineral which is very, very important for the proper functioning of thyroid gland. So in thyroxine, hormone molecule is attached with 4 iodine, and here it is attached with 3 iodine. So if we see thyroid system, so you can see from hypothalamus that is secreted thyrotrophic releasing hormone TRH, which is having the stimulation in pituitary gland, and then from pituitary gland TSH is released like thyroid stimulating hormone, and from then it just functions on thyroid gland. So thyroid gland releases T3 and T4 like thyroxine and triiodothyronine, and also calcitonin, calcitonin. Calcitonin is having a different function, but if we see T3 and T4, we'll talk about them, its function. They increase the metabolism of our body and growth and development also, and increase catecholamine effect like adrenaline and non-adrenaline hormone under control of this one. So they control all the metabolic activities, enhance glucose catabolism, promote basal metabolic rate of the body as well, and they promote development of the nervous system, as well as they act on muscles for a proper functioning and growth. So what happens if thyroid is not properly functioning or dysfunction of thyroid? So we can see that if there is less thyroid functioning or less secretion of thyroxine, T3 and T4, so what happened, that is called hypothyroidism, and we can suffer from dry hair, fluffy face, slow heartbeat, weight gain, constipation, brittle nails, arthritis, cold intolerance, that the person can feel, we can say can feel more cold. There can be depression, dry skin, fatigue, memory loss, heavy menstrual bleeding, and muscle aches as well. So it means under secretion of this thyroid gland, or under secretion of this thyroxine T3 and T4, it slows down the metabolic activities. That's why there is constipation and weight gain as well, and slow heartbeat. Then there is puffy face, and the person can suffer from myxedema. Myxedema, like the accumulation of like hormones and fluids in the body, so that they get swollen up. And also hypothyroidism can have the problem goiter. Goiter means the nodules formation in this thyroid gland, and the neck can be swollen like this. This is the normal thyroid gland, and this is enlarged thyroid gland. So slows down the activity by the accumulation of nodules in this thyroid gland. And then we are having if the person is suffering from hyperthyroidism, means more T3 and T4 is secreting in the body, so there is more metabolic activity increased, so there is hair loss, bulging eyes, and that is the signs and symptoms of Graves' disease. If you can see this person, there is more sweating, rapid heartbeat, and weight loss is there. So regular gas production, like soft nails, nail can be brittle to they are soft, but here the nails are brittle. And sleeping difficulties are there. Heat intolerance is there due to more heat production from the body. Infertility, irritability, muscle weakness, nervousness, and scant menstrual period, like very delayed menstrual period in females which are having hyperthyroidism. So in hypothyroidism, if that is congenital, like from like from inborn, if it is inborn, so what happened, the kids are suffering from the disease that is called cretinism, and cretinism is the disease in which I can say cretinism, in which the infant that is suffering from hyperthyroidism, and the person is having less stature, bulging eyes, and lots all problems are here, but with that mental retardation as well as poor physical growth and delayed puberty can be the problem of in infants, that is called cretinism. Okay, dear students, let's go through hypothyroid gland, parathyroid gland. Parathyroid glands are almost 4 in numbers, which are at the back of thyroid gland, as we have seen before. That is the front side. Now this is the back side of this one, and it is having 4 small glands. They are small size glands, and posterior aspect of thyroid gland they are present. Typically they are 4, but the number can vary. So in parathyroid glands, they monitor the calcium in the blood, very important function of the body, which is controlled by parathyroid gland, and that is done by 24 hours per day. So 4 parathyroid glands make more or less parathyroid hormones, more or less, so that depends on the condition, which can respond to level of calcium in the blood. So when the calcium in our blood goes too high, parathyroid gland stops functioning and making parathormone. Parathyroid gland releases parathormone or parathyroid hormone, which is having metabolic function on calcium. When on low calcium, when there is low calcium in the blood, so hypothalamus, what is that, is like it produces a thyroid stimulating hormone, and then it just goes to the parathyroid hormone, and then it secretes parathormone or parathyroid hormone, which we can see. So this one, when there is increased calcium ion, so it inhibits itself the production of parathormone. But if the calcium ions decrease, so it stimulates the production of parathyroid hormone, so it regulates the phosphorus and calcium ions. So parathormone activates or functions on bone, kidney, and GIT. You can see here low concentration of calcium in the blood, that release of parathormone, that is the reason for that. So that affects on the bones for the resorption or efflux of calcium from the bone. So in response, bones can be brittle and easy to break and fracture. So it functions on the kidneys to decrease loss of calcium in the urine and retention more calcium in the blood, and it just releases more vitamin D to enhance the absorption of calcium from the intestine. So then increased concentration of calcium in the blood can occur. So if there is hypocalcemia, like less secretion of calcium ion, so there is increased neuromuscular excitability or muscular cramps that can act as tetany, as we have discussed tetany before in the previous chapters, and hypercalcemia, that get decreased neuromuscular excitability. So muscle weakness can be done, and increased bone fractures due to that, like more absorption of calcium from the blood, from the bone, that makes the bone fractures, and more calcium can be accumulated in the kidneys to make more kidney stones, and then the person can have constipation. So there are some hormones which are secreted from the kidneys, and there are three hormones: erythropoietin, which acts and stimulate red blood cells for the production, which affect on the bones. They affect vitamin D to the hormone calcitriol, and that is needed for calcium reabsorption during digestion, and also they release renin. So a substance that leads to the secretion of aldosterone, which controls our blood pressure also. So these are the some hormones which are released from the kidneys, and we have talked about some important glands as well. So this is the endocrine function of kidneys on the body. So dear student, that's it for today. I hope you have understood. We will see inshallah in the next lecture some more glands. Wish you all the best. Allah Hafiz.